Today's episode is brought to you by Faithland Investments and Financial Services, your trusted partner for business insurance solutions. As an entrepreneur, protecting your business is just as important as building it. Faithland Investments and Financial Services helps you safeguard what matters most with tailored business insurance solutions designed to keep you covered through every stage of growth. Don't leave your business vulnerable. Secure the right coverage today. Visit faithland.com to learn more. Welcome to Start That Business podcast, where I help Jesus-led career moms turn their expertise into their first coaching or consulting business in just 12 weeks. If that sounds like you, you're in the right place. My name is Chichi Ukomadu. I'm a Jesus lover, an entrepreneur, a mom of three, and a Christian business coach. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to grow an audience for your coaching business from scratch without social media. I have a very special guest, Faith Hanan, who is an expert on this topic. Faith is a Jesus lover, wife, barrel racer, worship leader, accidental SEO expert, copywriter, podcaster, and wrangler of little humans. She podcasts over at Simple SEO and Marketing, where she shares very practical tips on how to scale your online business using SEO, keywords, and blogging. Faith is a firm believer that business and Christianity should always intersect. SEO shouldn't require a Harvard degree, and horsehair and dog hair are a legitimate part of any good day. If you're ready to learn how to grow your audience for your coaching business from scratch without social media, then pop in those earbuds, lace those shoes, and let's get started. Hey Faith, welcome to Start That Business podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today's episode.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, Chichi.
I'm excited. I actually met you first virtually on Stephanie Ga's P2P course. I think it was the module where you taught about Pinterest and blogging and how to grow your audience using those two platforms. So that was where I spotted you. And I'm like, yeah, I really want her to be on my podcast because I love the way you simplify building an audience with Pinterest, blogging, SEO, and all the things. And we'll get into that. But when I was reading your bio on your website, I see that you call yourself an accidental SEO expert. And I want to hear the story. How did you become an accidental SEO expert? Can you share how God led you into the space of organic marketing and content strategy and all the things?
Yeah, for sure. So I've always been a writer and a communicator by nature. Like marketing things is just part of how my brain works. And I had a client, I was creating content for them, writing blog content for them. And then I had my own blog. And I was like, my website is so beautiful and my stuff is so well written, but I'm not getting traffic. And they're getting like extra digits on their traffic. And I was like, what even? Why is this happening? Their website is ugly. As you know, like, well, that's how we think, right? And so I was like, why are they getting traffic? So I started getting into what causes traffic. Like, why do some people get traffic and other people don't? Because I was clearly writing such wonderful things, So I thought, and not getting anybody to see it except like my mom and one of my best friends who would go and read whatever I wrote. And so I started digging into what causes people to get website traffic. And so I would experiment little bits with SEO. And I was like, okay, what if I do this here? And what if I do this here? And what if I do this here? Like, what happens? And then I had a client who I was revamping her entire blogging strategy and SEO to what I knew at that point. And she's like, hey, Faith, I want you to set up all of my Google Analytics and all of this stuff for me. And I was like, sure, I'll figure it out. Not really knowing what I was doing, but she knew that. But she's like, Faith will figure it out. And I was like, okay, here goes. And in the process of doing that work for that client, I had to figure out what all these SEO terms meant. And I started watching like paid content about SEO, about Google Analytics. And I watched hours and hours and hours of paid content and could not get a working definition of some of these very simple terms. And I was like about ready to bang my head on the table. And I realized if it's hard for me, then it's hard for everybody else.
Right.
So what if I can make it easy for everybody else? Then this would be worth it. And so I busted out my little whiteboard and I literally wrote down definitions of all of these terms like page titles and tags and SEO and SERPs. And I'm like, this is what this means in normal human language. And I created this cheat sheet for myself on a whiteboard. And I was like, oh, you should give this away, Faith. You should help people with this. And so what I ended up doing is I took my marketing skills and I really tailored it specifically to SEO. And I've always been good with words, and I had a copywriting and, content writing business, but I just further honed in on SEO and how to get found for your thing. And it's just been really fun because there's been things where I'm like, I don't know how to do this, Lord, help me. And the Holy Spirit will show me how to do something. And then months later, I find out from an SEO perspective why that even works. I've already done the thing. But it's been fun and funny because I'm not typically a real like I like math and I like English, but you wouldn't have categorized me as like the nerd in high school.
Yeah.
So my husband teases me. He's like, you're not nerdy enough to do SEO, Faith. Blue light glasses. I was like, hi. That's why it works, because it's not natural.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. When you mentioned that you had a beautiful website and it wasn't bringing any leads and someone with an ugly website, that's exactly where I am with my website. I'm like, this website is so pretty, but pretty is not bringing me the leads or the sales. So I can totally relate to you and seeing how doing or solving that problem for a client now became you solving it for yourself and everyone else. And that's what I really like about the way you teach SEO. You make it human. You make it human. It's not rocket science. I don't have to go to Harvard to go learn what SEO is.
Right.
So that's what I really, really love about the way you teach it, the programs you offer, and anyone else that is listening, my audience that is starting their first coaching or consulting business is definitely something to look into because it will save you hours of trying to do things the wrong way. So many new coaches or many Jesus-led career moms who are trying to start their own coaching or consulting business, a lot of them think that social media is the only way to get visible. And I will say that I fell into that trap too. So what will you tell someone who is already feeling burnt out by scrolling and still wants to grow real audience, not just people that like and comment and it doesn't convert to sales? So how will you help such a person?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Social media is a thing, right? Like it legitimately works for some people and for some businesses. And there are some people who really enjoy it. They really enjoy the daily posting and all of the things. And to them, if they enjoy it and it's working and it's generating sales, I say, rock on, baby, have fun. But if you're like me and you're like, I get a little distracted by the phone in my face and I'm not paying attention to the sweet little babies who are playing in front of me, and you want to build away from social media, you need a different strategy. Social media is primarily a social and entertaining platform. And we have to shift our mindset away from socializing and entertaining to become a search and solution and service-based marketing strategy. And so what I really always encourage business owners to do is make your website your hub, because I want to get found by people who are willing to pay dollars.
Right.
People who are just going to give me a virtual high five in the air. Like, high fives and hearts are cool, but they don't pay the entry fees to my next barrel race.
I know.
When I can set myself up, my business or my client's business up in such a way that they're positioned as the solution, when somebody goes to search for a solution, then they're going to get found. They're going to get traffic. And then when you write your website copy in such a way that it speaks to your ideal person, then you're going to get sales because they found you when they were hot, ready to buy, and you connected with them based around who they are, their problems, position them as a hero. And then you're also able to be like, hey, here's a solution to your problem. And they're ready to buy because they're already searching for that solution.
I like what you said about social media being a platform to socialize and entertain, and just switching your mindset away from, okay, this is a platform created for that, but I am going into the service-based business where I'm going to be serving people, and it makes sense for them to find me when they're actually searching for the solution. Like maybe Googling, how do I get accountability coaching or career coaching or business coaching or whatever coaching you're starting. So it makes sense because that way you can free yourself and say, okay, like Faith said, if you enjoy social media, go for it. I don't enjoy social media. As a matter of fact, my Instagram account just got hacked like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, Chi, if that's not a sign, I don't know what else. Because prior to the account being hacked, I was already feeling the burnout just posting on social media. And I'm like, I want to connect in a deeper way. I want to serve in a more authentic way. And I felt like the social media piece was just getting me stuck on my phone and all of that. So I'm glad you mentioned the shift in mindset to see it. It's a socializing and entertaining platform. You can use it for business, but you're better off doing something else that will produce the result. So Faith, what are some steps that a new coach or consultant should take when they start building an audience organically? So I'm starting from scratch. Maybe I decide not to go with social media. What are some steps that you can provide to guide me on what to do?
As I'm sure you coach your coaches, into getting really specific in what they solve. But specificity is also extremely important when it comes to being a solutions service-based business winning on Google, because people are searching for solutions. And they're often not searching for solutions in the way that we assume they are. And so you have to get in and you have to do keyword research. And you have to figure out, okay, how are people searching for what it is I do on Google? And I cannot tell you how many clients, highly successful business owners, 6- and 7-figure business owners, thought that they were going to get traffic for one keyword phrase, when in reality, people were searching something completely different.
Right.
And you don't know until you get in and do the research. I can almost promise you, every time I get in and do keyword research with the client, I am surprised at what people are actually searching versus what I thought they were searching. And this is after years of doing it. And so don't assume that you know what people are searching, because often what comes out of somebody's mouth is very different than what they type with their fingers. And so you may have great market research. People tell you all of these things, great. But if it doesn't align with what's actually being researched via Google and typed in the keywords, then you can't use it in a keyword heavy place. Okay. So you have to get in and do the keyword research. My favorite platform for that is Ubersuggest.
Ubersuggest.
Mm-hmm. And then secondly, you have to start building your business with your website in mind as the core of your content strategy, your marketing strategy, your sales strategy, because that is the ground that you own.
Right.
You don't own your social media following. And if somebody is wanting to spend above $20, $50, $100 with you, they're checking out your website. They might buy a $5 thing off of Instagram, but they're not going to book a $10,000 coaching package.
Right.
Because if you can't take the time to build your website out and build it right, you're not going to get my money, especially that level of money. And so when you build with SEO in mind on your website, what you're doing is you're building a firm foundation. It's not flashy. You don't see the foundation of a house and be like, ooh, that's a nice foundation. Like, that's not where your brain goes. You're like, that's a pretty chandelier. But the chandelier is useless if the foundation is cracked. as kingdom entrepreneurs, I'm like, I want to build in such a way that it's going to last. I want a firm foundation. So I want my SEO strategy to be solid. I want my messaging strategy to be solid. I want my website to be doing work for me. All of those are really foundational issues that sometimes don't feel very fun, but you're putting in the work on the front end that's going to pay off dividends for years and years and years and years. I had social media posts that I put hours into filming and getting the right shot and getting the words aligned and the timing aligned, right? That got me like maybe a few clicks, maybe a few likes, but no clients. And I have blog posts that I wrote 9 years ago, almost 9 years ago now, that still get traffic.
Wow.
So I'd rather put in the work up front and work smarter, instead of constantly hustling and never being able to take a day off when I want to go do something other than work.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. So I heard you mention 3 things from what you just said. So you said one is keyword research. So researching your keyword, because like you said, when you do a market research, you're talking to an ideal client. What they say might not match what they're actually typing. So keyword research is the first step you can take when you start building your audience. And she recommended Uber Suggest. I will drop it in the podcast description so you can go check it out. The second thing you said was focusing on your website being your foundation. And I like the word you used where you said that is the land that you own. I had an episode I did a couple of weeks ago where I spoke about a domain name being a land you purchase on the internet. Then your website is the house you build on the land. So if I want to visit Faith Hannon on the internet, I just go to her website and it brings me to your digital home. And everything, like you said, is there, building the foundation, making sure everything is solid in terms of the SEO you did. And you mentioned a third thing, which was blogging, which is a long form content, like you mentioned. So having that, you mentioned that your blog, you have some blog posts that are still bringing traffic 8 to 9 years after you wrote them. Wow, that is wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool, but it's funny because it's not what I teach about anymore. Like, it's still good information. It's about friendship, actually.
Right.
But I'm like, well, I'm not teaching people how to be good friends, but okay, I'll welcome the traffic, like that's not what my business is about anymore, but it's still getting traffic, right?
Right. Since you spoke about blogging, and blogging is one of the long form content types. My question now is, do I need more than one type of long form content when I'm growing my audience, especially if I'm not using social media? Can you talk a little bit about the long form content and how that can come in for me when I'm building my audience?
So it used to be enough to have one form of long form content. You could either have a podcast or a blog or a YouTube channel, but it's just getting more and more competitive.
Right.
And so I absolutely think it's necessary to have more than one form of long form content. Now, before you hit the freak out button, like, Faith, I'm barely getting one done. But there are ways to work smarter, not harder in your content creation. So for example, we're currently doing one podcast into one blog a week, right? That's our typical workflow on a typical week. So what I do is I have an idea. I'm like, okay, I'm going to teach about this idea. I outline the thing. I get the main points out there. And then I further flesh out my outline for my podcast. Well, great. Then I've got the podcast. I publish the podcast. And then I take that outline and I do keyword research for what's going to work in a blog.
Mm.
Now, I'm not going to call something that it's not. I'm not going to completely manipulate or lie about the content. But the keywords that people search in a podcast are different than the keywords they search on Google.
Right.
And so what works for a podcast title does not necessarily work for a blog title. So you do have to do blog specific keyword research. And I've already got the content. I'm just figuring out if people want to talk about mom jeans or vintage jeans. You know what I mean? Like, how are they phrasing it on Google, right? Like,
right.
What is the word they're using? And then I take my outline that I fleshed out for my podcast and I beef it up and I turn it into more a 5-paragraph essay for my blog. Now, oftentimes, if you've already recorded the podcast, you've got the transcript.
Right.
You can have your assistant help you from the words that already came out of your mouth and fill out that outline and turn that into a blog. And then you've got your keyword research. So you can say, okay, I'm going to put the keyword here for my blog. And you've got one idea that created a podcast, a blog that then you can send to your email list and chop up for social media if you want. But what you're doing is you're creating two forms of evergreen long form content from one idea instead of having to come up with 5 separate ideas or 5 separate social media posts.
Wow. I love that. I love that. So you said because of the competitive nature of business right now, one long form content is no longer enough, like you said.
You've also got to think too, how do people learn best? I'm a work at home mom of 3 little kids. I can't always listen to a podcast, but while I'm nursing a baby, I can read a blog real quick on my phone.
Right.
And there's so many times I'm like, oh, I wish I could just read this and see the outline of it so I can go implement it. Maybe I don't have time to listen to a 15-minute podcast, but I can skim your blog.
That makes so much sense. And just being able to repurpose, because you're recording the podcast once, then you're turning it into the blog, repurposing it for your email list, social media, if you're doing that. So you're just doing the work once pretty much, then turning it into all the bits and pieces. So that makes sense. You have multiple, like you said, evergreen content out there that is doing the work for you and pulling that audience in so that you're working smarter and not harder. I love that. So how can someone practically weave their faith and calling into their content without feeling like they're forcing ministry into marketing? Because I know that is one of the things you are a strong believer about, making sure that we see our work as ministry. So how do I bring that into my content, especially for Jesus-led moms who are doing this?
I think that as Christians, we have, as a whole, the church as a whole, globally, we've bought the lie of the enemy that our faith and our life are separate. Whereas our faith is supposed to be constantly sanctifying us. If I don't honor God in my motherhood, if I don't honor God in my work, if I don't honor God when I go to Walmart, then I've got work to do. And if I choose to be a disciple of Christ and make him the Lord of my life, then he dang sure better be Lord of every area. Now, for a long time ago, I heard the phrase like, preach the gospel always and use words only when necessary. But I don't think that that's true. Jesus didn't walk around and be like mamsy-pamsy, like doing miracles with his mouth shut. He was bold with his faith. And we live in a world that is bold with sin. Can we not be bold with love? Can we not be bold with our faith? Can we not be bold in how we interact and how we treat people better than everybody else? Because we are called to be servants of the Most High God and to let him be Lord of every area of our life. I don't know how to not include my faith in everything that I do.
Wow. Your name is Faith, by the way. So just by your name, it's already included there. But I like what you said about Jesus being Lord. Because if he's Lord, he should be Lord over everything and not just some things. But getting comfortable to where we're bold enough to share our content. We're bold enough to say, hey, I serve Jesus-led career moms. So if you're not on that trajectory, I'm sorry, I can't help you. That's the person I've been called to serve. So showing up in a world that, like you said, is bold about sin. People are getting bolder and bolder every day in sin. So we should be bold enough to bring in our faith into our content and relying on the Holy Spirit to help us. Because what I was pondering on this week was how we have spiritual intelligence and artificial intelligence. And sometimes we get so addicted to the artificial intelligence, not knowing that the spiritual intelligence we have trumps any other intelligence that we can get. So letting the Holy Spirit lead the content, lead and help us in our research. Like you said, you do some things and later you find out, oh, this was something I needed in SEO because the Holy Spirit led you He's the spirit of truth. He knows everything. He probably knows what they are searching on Google too.
He does. To me, it's also like there's supposed to be something different about you if you're a follower of Christ.
Right.
And so there will be people in the marketplace attracted to you and how you help people that aren't Christians. There should be. In my questionnaire for when I have like coaching clients, I'm like, hey, is it okay if I give you biblical advice? And I think everybody but 2 people has said yes. And the 2 that said no, I was like, one person I turned away. I was like, just because of what they did, I was like, I can't help you.
Right.
Okay, that's okay. But it was a door to love on and show the love of Christ to that person even and to other people. It's like you don't have to want to read the Bible to have effective help in business. And if what you do and how you do it is so excellent and above the standard of everybody else, then you know what? That's going to be a ministry in and of itself that you can use to reach people for the kingdom.
Right. That is absolutely right. Absolutely right. So as we wrap up this conversation, what is one simple, consistent habit that a Jesus-led career mom that is starting her first online coaching or consulting business can start doing today to grow her audience, her authority, her revenue, all without social media? What is one thing she can start doing today?
I would say posting just consistently, in your quiet time, have time with the Lord because he's going to direct you. In your business workflow, your weekly tasks, I would love to see you writing one SEO-friendly blog per week. And you may not see results from it tomorrow. It's a crock pot of marketing. That's okay. But you're sowing those seeds for future leads when you do that.
You're sowing those seeds for future leads. Wow, wow, wow. That is awesome. That's awesome. If you want to learn more about what Faith does, how to grow your audience with SEO marketing, blogging, and all the things, you can go check out her freebie at faithhannon.com/more-leads. I will have the link in the podcast description where you can click. She actually has an amazing training. I've gone through the training myself. You will learn so much more than we can cover in this episode. So go download it and also check it out. Faith, how else can my audience connect with you? Are you taking new clients? What other services do you offer that they can benefit from?
Yeah, thanks so much. So we are taking new clients. We do website copywriting and SEO. So we'll help you get your website copy saying the right things to attract your ideal clients and your SEO set up so that you are going to get found for the thing that you do. So we're taking new clients for that. And then I also have a course called the Simple SEO Framework that walks you through how to set your website up for success in 4 to 8 hours, how to maintain a traffic generating machine in 2 hours a week and start seeing 300%, 500%, even 12,000% more leads. And we start seeing results in as little as 30 days.
Wow, that's awesome. Awesome. I will drop links to all the things she mentioned in the podcast description, the course, how you can book if you want her to do your website copy or SEO marketing. You can check all those links in the podcast description. And if you want to connect with her, Faith has a podcast called Simple SEO and Marketing, and you can listen to learn more about growing your audience from scratch without social media. Thank you so much, Faith, for coming on today's episode. It was amazing just hearing all the wisdom you had to share with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I would like to say a huge thank you to Faithland Investments and Financial Services for sponsoring today's episode. If you're building a business, protecting it should be a top priority, whether you need general liability, professional liability, or coverage that is tailored to your service-based business. Faithland has you covered. Visit faithland.com to explore the best business insurance options for you. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something new and you were encouraged to take action. If so, will you stop right now and share this episode with someone so they can get the help you just got? I would also love it if you can leave a review for this podcast on Apple Podcast or the podcast app you're using to listen. This is the number one way I know you're getting value from the content on this podcast. Until next time, always remember you have all you need to start that business. So keep listening for more episodes. I'll meet you here next week.